What's going on, guys? Welcome back to The Shelf, and today we are talking about It's What's Inside, a new release 2024 Netflix film directed by Greg Jardin. This is going to be a spoiler-filled video. This is a movie that kind of necessitates me discussing what is going on in the story, in the narrative, and how the story is told on a more deeper level, so you really can't watch this video without having seen the movie first. I mean, you could, but I wouldn't recommend it. So if you haven't seen It's What's Inside and you're curious about it, go check the movie out. I will say up front, I highly recommend this movie. I really, really liked it. So go check it out and then maybe come back and watch this video after. Now, getting right into it. This was a movie that seemingly came out of nowhere. It just kind of popped up on my radar and people were liking it. They were really digging it, and it came pretty highly recommended by some people that I trust, so I added it to my list and eventually got around to watching it. As a quick aside, I just want to say how disappointing it is that movies like this seemingly pop up out of nowhere with zero marketing on these streaming services. They wind up being really good, and the only way that they survive or continue to have a life of their own is through, like, good word of mouth. And even sometimes that's not enough to really give these movies, like, a second and third wind, you know what I mean? It's like these things come out of nowhere, they either do well, they get a lot of success, like something like Bird Box, which, you know, does not deserve the amount of, like, praise that it got. And then something like this kind of remains like this really hidden gem, and since it never gets, like, a physical release or a theatrical distribution, these things kind of just come and go. But that's a video for a whole other day. I just want to say that, you know, if you take anything away from this video, it is that you should definitely watch this movie if you haven't, and tell your friends about it, because I think it's a really recommendable movie. I think it's something that you could recommend to just about anyone, and they would probably have a good time with it. So getting right into the movie, it begins, and, you know, I wasn't quite sure what was going on at first, because for one thing, for some reason, I thought that this was like a body horror film or like a movie where people turn into monsters. I think the tagline was like, no body is leaving the same or something like that. And then the way my weird brain worked, I was like, oh, well, that's, you know, they're gonna like shift into something else. Kinda, but not really. So the movie begins and it's this couple arguing, and they're having like a pretty relatable argument, I guess. Like if you're in a relationship with somebody, the way that their argument is acted feels very realistic. It feels like two people actually having like a real argument. And I was kind of into that. And then it was very well acted and it was convincing. And then the argument goes like right into this smash cut to like a title card. And it's like very high energy and the music's going. And it was like, okay, this is good. My interest is piqued here. And then it goes into like this social media sort of like exposition dump, which is a good vehicle to do that sort of thing, because the way it's framed is by these like teenagers, or I guess they're young adults, early 20s, something like that, but they're having these discussions and they're kind of just gossiping, and then that's the auditory thing, and then the visual is like all these different social media components where the story is being told like through social media. And I was like, okay, that's a good way to get the exposition out of the way. But then I was also like, ooh, is this going to be like one of those movies where it's like Gen Z and it's like somebody who's clearly not Gen Z writing dialogue for Gen Z characters, and it comes off very abrasive and like off-putting, and like there's a disconnect between me and that generation, so like I kind of find the whole thing like off-putting a little bit, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I kind of had my guard up a little bit, but then as the movie progressed, I quickly realized that there was no need to worry, and that I was actually in very good hands. So yeah, the movie's edited really, really well, and it's shot really well as well. Technically, on a technical level, this film is immaculate. The editing is so snappy and quick, and it really gives the movie this flow and this pacing, and it's very distinct, and I just really enjoyed the editing of it all. It'll be like one character telling the story, and then another character will chime in and interrupt them and be like, actually, you're forgetting this part. And then what you're seeing on screen are like these snapshot images of like someone's recounting the night. And as one person corrects the other person, the image will change to reflect what actually happened. And it's just edited really well. So basically what you have here is these really well-off, well-to-do 20-somethings, and one of them is getting married. This big group of friends made this pact that the night before this character gets married, they would all come to his house and, have a nice night to celebrate his marriage. So that day finally comes and all these characters reunite, and there's some strain in the relationship with some of the characters. There's there's a dynamic between each character that some things are a bit awkward between certain characters and others are happy to see each other. And, there's all these different dynamics going on interpersonal relationship wise. And then sort of our main couple that we follow for most of the movie, Shelby and Cyrus. The movie begins, they're the ones who are arguing in the beginning of the film. I should have mentioned that. This movie is very convoluted as it goes on, so it's hard to kind of recount exactly the sequencing of everything. So forgive me, bear with me here. If you've seen the movie already, then you can kind of understand what I'm saying. But if you haven't for some reason and you're still watching this, then this is probably going to sound pretty convoluted, which it is. But anyway, Shelby and Cyrus they're having some problems, and their relationship is kind of on the rocks. So they are the ones that we're following throughout the majority of the film. So this group of friends has another friend named Forbes, who has been kind of on the fringes of the friend group. Nobody's really heard from him in a while, but he was supposed to come to this night together. And so when it's revealed that he is coming, people are kind of like unsure how to feel about that because they haven't heard from him or seen from him in a long time.
Well, you had mentioned that we might be playing some games tonight. Do you still want to play? Yeah, we'll play games tonight, man.
It's established that Forbes is a fan of games. He likes playing games. He's kind of like the game master or the dungeon master for the D&D people. So Forbes shows up and he's acting kind of weird. And since this is the first time we're meeting him, we don't know if this is how he always is or if he's just if he's acting differently for any kind of reason. So things progress, and eventually Forbes has this game with him in a briefcase, and he doesn't tell them what they're about to do, but he convinces them all to apply these electrodes to their temples, and they all sit in a circle, and for like 20 seconds or whatever, just real quick, he does this thing where they all switch into different bodies. Everyone's in a different body. It happens very quick, and then they all go back, and then they're all like, whoa, what the fuck was that? Everyone's like understandably kind of freaking out, and Forbes explains to them that it's this new game that his company that he works for is developing, and he just wanted to show them what he was working on. And there's a lot of suspense leading up to this scene because Forbes has something weird going on, but you don't know like what it is, what he's about to do to our group. This is going to be like the crux of the film, but you don't know quite what is about to happen. So after they all get a brief taste of it, they all kind of collectively decide that they want to continue playing this game. And they decide that, similar to games like Mafia or Werewolf, or like Among Us or whatever, where it's like you have to figure out as a group who is the traitor or whatever. The conceit of this game is that you have to figure out who is in whose body. And since this is a close-knit group of friends, they're all pretty keyed in on like each other's characteristics and their traits. So the fun of it is that they get to try to figure out like, oh, this person would do that. That's this person in this person's body. As an audience who's just watching this movie and just meeting these characters for the first time and understanding that they all have different relationships with one another, it is incredibly intriguing and convoluted and exciting to watch, because it's like, okay, now we just got used to all these characters, and now they're going to be the same actor playing a different character that we've just met. So they're all, and it's not like one-to-one switches where it's one person switched with another person and they're in each other's bodies. It's this person's in this body, this guy's in this body. It's very confusing. As an audience member, this is super interesting because the movie is asking you, have you been paying attention? Have you been looking at each of these characters well? And hopefully you didn't write them off as one-dimensional characters, because they're actually not. They're actually they're all pretty layered. Some more than others, but they're all dynamic characters, fully realized characters. And now those characters are being played by another actor, and it's on us as well as the other characters to figure out who is who. And it's very, very interesting. I personally haven't been this engaged with a movie in a long time, because what I thought was about to be just kind of another like boring, I don't know. I'm not going to say I wrote this movie off, but I just didn't know what to expect, really. So I kind of brushed off like the social media introduction that's explaining all the lore and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't really realize how important that was going to be. And that was a mistake on my part, because I fully realize now that all of that was very important to what would go on to happen in the rest of the movie. Pretty rookie mistake, I must say, but I didn't know I wasn't familiar with this movie's game, so I didn't know what was about to happen. As you get into it, there's all these different dynamics where this character was interested in this girl, and now this character is in a different guy's body, and this girl is in a different girl's body, and they're hooking up, which is like deeply unethical. If Buffy the Vampire Slayer taught me anything, it's that it's deeply unethical to like have sex with another person while in another person's body. Not something I'll probably ever have to deal with, but it's something to be aware of for sure. So I can't even recount all of the different ways in which this movie is kind of just personally blowing my mind. It's so well written. It's such a clever script, and nothing is wasted. There's not an ounce of fat, really. Everything has significance. Anything that is being expressed to the audience is something that you should file away in your brain, because it's going to be important later. It's paced super, super well, and it's endlessly watchable, because from moment to moment, you don't really know what's going to happen, and that's just the best kind of movie to me. This probably isn't a unique take, but it fully reminded me of something like Talk to Me, crossed with like Bodies, which is like the Gen Z, younger crowd, and they're using like some sort of supernatural or otherworldly game as like a party game, like getting stoned at a party and like playing a game in a circle with all your friends, except the game is like kind of dangerous. The movie is fully aware of how confusing it is, because later on in the movie, one of the characters is being explained what's happening, and that character is someone is explaining to that character what is happening, and they're also explaining it to the audience. This character is like an audience surrogate in that moment. And the character is like, I'm fucking confused, bro. And it made me laugh, because I was like, yeah, I'm fucking confused too. But it's the kind of confused where it's a good confused, because like you can pause the movie for a second and you can think about it and you can be like, okay. And then it's like, once you have your bearings, then you can kind of keep going. And, if there's one positive to this being on Netflix, it's that you can do that. You can pause it and you can rewind and you can watch it again, which, is good, because this is the kind of movie that really would necessitate a second and maybe even a third watch, because I fully plan on watching this again, knowing everything that I know, and I would be willing to bet that I'm going to get even more out of it as a result of that. So yeah, the movie is insanely convoluted, but in the best possible way. It is such a fun watch. I wouldn't be surprised if this could be left open for a sequel even. Hopefully, if this does well. I don't know what metrics Netflix judges that sort of thing by, but if this does well, then maybe we could get a sequel. And I would bet that would be a lot of fun too, because Greg Jardin really killed this. Like, he knocked this out of the park. I wasn't really familiar with his work prior to this movie, but I am now, and I'm interested in seeing what else he's done. This movie was just a trip, man. I really, really liked it. It is a gem. It's on Netflix right now. Go watch it. Really, really liked it. So with all that being said, guys, like the video if you haven't. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of this movie. Were you as enamored with it as I was? I seem to be not on an island. Some people either just kind of thought it was good or thought it was fine. I really, really liked this, so I'm interested to see like what everyone else is thinking about it. So yeah, let me know down in the comment section. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. We talk about new movies, old movies, physical media, and horror movies in general. So with all that being said, please take care and watch more movies.